All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's Portals Community Call. I'm Jason Gumbert from MS Dynamics World. Always pleased to be back for another one of these sessions. We are joined, as always, by our host, Nicholas Hayduke, who will be taking over here momentarily. Please do know that we do welcome your questions throughout today's event. Just enter them into the questions tab at any point. I know Nick will be keeping an eye on that. We're also recording today's event, so we will be sharing a link to that after the session ends. And with that, I think we can move things forward here. Nick, why don't I hand things over to you?
Alrighty, thank you very much, Jason. Welcome everyone to our call for October. We're going to be talking about PowerFX. So if you hate Liquid but you still want a low code language for Power Pages, hey, maybe PowerFX will be your new friend. So we'll quickly jump into just a quick introduction. If this is your first time joining a call with us, my name is Nicholas Hayduke. I'm the president and a software engineer at Engineered Code, based here in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I've been working with Power Pages for the last 15 years or so. My career began at EDX Studio, which was the company that originally built Power Pages and was acquired by Microsoft in 2015. Engineered Code, we're a Microsoft partner. We specialize in Power Pages implementations. We've also got EC Learn, which is our learning management system, all built within the Power Platform within Dataverse. If you aren't already connected with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to do so. You can also check out our Twitter, where we kind of post all the different things we're doing, which includes our blog, which we release pretty much every month. I'm just working on one right now. We've also got our YouTube channel where we post these recordings as well as our weekly tips. So every week we put out a quick little kind of 2-3 minute tip on YouTube. And we've also got crm.audio, where the Refresh the Cache podcast is located. So if you're looking for Power Pages content, we've got a few options there for you. Again, follow us on X or Twitter or whatever it's called these days, or LinkedIn, and you'll get the links to all of that content. All right. As always, just want to say thanks to Jason and the team at Dynamics World for their support. It was nice to see you again in person, Jason, and catch up at Summit NA that occurred last week in San Antonio. So it's always nice to see Jason in person. We've been getting together at events like that for many years. So it's always nice to do that.
Same here,
And
Nick.
so so just thanks for all your support over the years, and here's to many more. In terms of our agenda, we do have some news this month, so that's nice. We've got some new feature announcements. Like I said, we'll talk about PowerFX, and then we'll talk about the date and time of our next community call. And there will be an opportunity for Q&A if anyone has any questions for us, whether it's about today's topic or anything else, kind of Power Pages or Power Platform, portals, that sort of thing. And as Jason mentioned, if you do have any questions, drop them in that question block, and I will do my best to not forget to check those. All right, so let's look at our portals news. So, things were a little quieter over the last few months, but I think that has kind of ended here because it's been busy over the last little while. So if you just look at, say, the product team's blog, we've had a few new announcements. So one of these is the ability to add reusable custom components in the design studio. So this is when you see kind of reusable custom components, think web templates. So this is a way that you can define your web templates. The developers can create the web templates in the management apps, and then they kind of light up and they show up in the design studio. So you can have your developers create them and have your makers leverage them. The other one we got here is intelligent forms. This functionality essentially uses AI. There's, I think, a couple features announced as part of this right now. It uses, and this is for the users of your Power Pages site. So this isn't for the makers. This is for the people actually using your Power Pages site. And so the two features that they've talked about for now, One is the ability to essentially upload a scan of some photo ID, or upload the scan of a document and have it fill in the details on the form. So think of taking a picture of your driver's license or passport, and what it will do is it will read the information from that picture or from that scan and use that to fill in your form. The other one is using AI to fill out kind of longer text fields. So if you've got kind of a text area on your form, you can have AI assistant helping you fill that out. So those are the features with intelligent forms that were announced recently. I expect that they'll continue evolving that and adding more features, but those are the two that were announced here recently. Next one here is some new enhancements to the security dashboard, and so this is for the admins in the Power Platform Admin Center. So we've had the security dashboard here for a little while now. A few new features. So again, these are not necessarily new features overall, but just they're now being exposed via the security dashboard in the PPAC. So the ability to renew your website auth key, and that's the key that's used to connect kind of your website to Dataverse. I think this is off the top of my head. Maybe they're good for a couple of years. So when you do get email reminders when those are about to expire, you definitely don't want to let those expire because that'll take down your whole site. So I think there's some notifications there and the ability to renew it directly from the dashboard. Same with your SSL certificate. Now, this is something that you need to provide your own SSL certificate if you got a custom domain. But if you want to go through the process, it'll kind of identify the expiration date and identify or kind of give you a way to update that SSL certificate directly through that security dashboard. And the last one here on the security dashboard is the deep scan. So this is a new feature that we've had the kind of the portal checker or the quick scan, as they're calling it now. We've had that one for a while. The deep scan is a new tool that takes, they say up to a couple of hours. So it takes a little bit longer to do, but kind of produces a report of a bunch of recommendations. And again, that's available on the security dashboard. And then finally, Entra External ID. So for anyone who's used Azure AD B2C over the last number of years for their Power Pages site, if you don't love that, there's now another option. So Entra External ID is Microsoft's new attempt at solving kind of the B2C login problem. So having people who are outside your organization log in with, whether it's social media credentials or creating their own kind of custom username and passwords. So solving that problem of, okay, not everyone that we're working with is going to have a regular Entra ID or Azure AD account. So how do we kind of control the authentication for these people who are outside of our organization? So it's not the new version of B2C, because I think B2C will continue to exist, but it's basically, I think Microsoft wanted to wipe the slate clean, start fresh, and take another crack at that. So now that there's now an interface within Power Pages to help you set that up. Now, I believe similar to with B2C, the interface is really just helping you kind of set it up. I think it's just integrated as a standard OpenID Connect provider, just as B2C was. So there's technically actually nothing special about Azure AD B2C or Entra External ID when it comes to the functionality within the Power Pages site, other than just some kind of improved or enhanced experiences for setting it up to begin with. So I think that's a similar story here. So I do think that essentially Entra External ID is the future as compared to Azure AD B2C. So I think you'll start seeing that use on a lot more Power Pages products going forward as compared to the old B2C technology. So that's what I've seen in terms of news here over the last month or so since we last met. So why don't we get into today's topic? Like I mentioned a few times, today's topic is PowerFX. Now I'm going to preface this with, I'm not a PowerFX, guru. PowerFX kind of came, I believe, from the land of Canvas apps, which I'm certainly not a Canvas app guru. I've done a few things in Excel, so there's some familiarity there. So I hope you're not going to ask me too many complicated questions about PowerFX itself. What we're really going to focus on today is, how does this, how is this impacting? How is this used on Power Pages? Rather than like a real complicated, like fancy PowerFX class, you probably can find some better people who are more well suited to do that. But yeah, this is going to be more focused on if you kind of know PowerFX, if there's and you how do we use that in Power Pages? So PowerFX, what is it? It's a low-code language. It is used across the Microsoft Power Platform. So you'll see it in Canvas Power Apps. You'll see it in Power Apps cards. You'll see it in calculated Dataverse columns. You'll see it in low-code Dataverse plugins. They're using it in model-driven Power Apps commanding. I think now it's in preview for Power Automated Desktop. So it is basically Microsoft's preferred low-code language. They're integrated in as many places as they can, I think. And so, as you can see, now we have it for Power Pages. So currently, it's in preview. So if you're an organization that kind of stays away from in preview things in production, which I totally understand and get, you can play around with it, but it is in preview right now. And so where can it be used? Primarily, I think people are going to use it where you can, like when you're putting in text. So typically you're going to be putting it in the Power Pages Design Studio. So I think the big use case for it is in text, but you can also use it for image buttons and iframes. You can see for those ones, you can use it to craft the URL. So the URL of your image, the URL that your button's going to, or the URL of your iframe. And then for images, you can also use it to craft the alt text. And for the button, you can use it to craft the button text. So as you're kind of working with those different components within the Design Studio, whether it's text, image, buttons, iframes, you'll see that little PowerFX command button light up. You'll also maybe see some pop-ups saying, hey, this thing's, PowerFX is supported here. Do you want to give it a try? And then you'll have the ability to create your PowerFX commands and see that used on Power Pages. So one thing that's maybe different depending on where you've used PowerFX in the past, if you have used it in the past, in Power Pages you start your formula with the equal sign. So again, this kind of makes me think of Excel, where when you're typing out your commands, you start with the equal sign, and that's how you kind of indicate, hey, this is my PowerFX command. And so it's in the PowerFX toolbar. You'll see here in a second when we jump over into a little bit of a demo. You use the equal sign, and that's how you begin your PowerFX formulas. You can use it to access Dataverse tables. So when you'll see here with when we start creating our PowerFX commands, we're going to get the IntelliSense autocomplete stuff, and you'll see that you have access to all the tables within your Dataverse environment. But it's important to know that table permissions are enforced. So just like what we do with Web API or FetchX, or with Liquid, FetchXML, the different liquid entities, you do need to be you need to be setting up your table permission. So you can get some odd results if you're writing things expecting the data to be there. If you haven't set up your table permissions properly, watch out. So you can use it to access Dataverse data, but don't forget to set up your table permissions properly. There is a special object that you get access to when you're using PowerFX with Power Pages, and that is the user object. There's a user function that I believe exists within, say, Canvas apps, where you can kind of get access to the person who's running this, and that's more the Entra ID or the Azure AD user. In this case, the user object we know is a contact. So the data, the details that you get about that person are what is the ID of their contact, what is their email, and what is their full name. So you can have access to the user object, and then you can then access stuff about the contact. There is a list that we can see here of all of the all of the formulas that are valid in Power Pages. So PowerFX as a language has a whole bunch of things, a whole bunch of formulas. Every different environment, like every different product that you use it into, has kind of its own, variations. Like I said, the user object in Power Pages. So if you're familiar, if you're using PowerFX in on other projects, it's possible that there are commands that you can use elsewhere or formulas you can use elsewhere that may not be valid in Power Pages. So it's always good to double check that formula reference to see, what's the full list of all the formulas that are available to you when you're using PowerFX specifically within Power Pages. So why don't we jump over to a little demo here. Okay, so we are on this page here. So if I were to create a new text component, what page am I on here? Okay, so you can see here, I've got this PowerFX bar here. If I click this, now I'm going to get my PowerFX command here. If I enter in an equal sign, that's going to light up my IntelliSense as I begin typing. So I'm going to just type in user, and I'm going to say dot email. So I'm going to click save here. You can see this is because I'm in the design studio, it kind of simulates portal user at powerappsportals.com. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to preview this, and we'll take a look at. Oh, I'm on the web API page. I see. So value cannot be null, parameter name value. And that is because I'm not logged in. So if I were to log in, you should see my email address. I'm going to switch pages here because I've got a web API page. So let me just jump over to new Copilot page. What do we got going on over there? Sure. Let me just delete that. Oh, I love the studio sometimes. There we go. Let's delete that and let's just get a new text in here. So if we wanted to avoid that ugly error message, if the user is null, that's when we can start using some of these conditions. So if user, then we go user dot email, otherwise anonymous. All right, let's see if that will save. Oh, didn't like that. Oh, probably I need to go. Just like that. And you go back. So this is where I'm showing my. I'm gonna go right here because this has some examples here. Hello. Hello. Right here. Parameter, yeah, so that's that's where it's null. Excuse me. So but you get the idea. I think if we, not sure why that, I did see an example where filter first, contact. And then we've got, oh, I think I know where it is. Power FX, Power Pages blog. Then yes, there we go. If blank or error, that's what I'm looking for. So is blank or error user, and then that would be anonymous. All right, there we go. You can see now it's logged in. So if I preview that, we're going to see, oh, that's interesting. Now I must have typed that something wrong again in there. User.email. Errors in invalid argument type record, expecting a boolean value instead of that. Okay, let's go back to our example here. Anyways, I think you get the idea. I'm just showing you how little I know about PowerFX itself. But like I mentioned in the user, we've got user email, we've got the Dataverse user ID. So we do have some examples of that in here. I'm going to duplicate that. The document. So you can see you can leverage that to do some filtering to actually get the contact record. So you can do something like this. So here we're going to filter based on the contacts, and we're saying with the contacts where the contact's ID equals this. So let me save that. Oh, first, and then I'm going to do dot. Go back. Oh, now we're really pooched here. There we go. Let's just say last name. Save. So if you just wanted their last name, you can use that to do a filter on the contact. So again, you have access to, if you just type in the name of the table, that's how you have access to, that's essentially an array of all the things in that table. But we have to keep in mind that that is filtered by table permissions. So one thing I was trying was you can do a count rows of contacts. If I save that, so you can see I've got 13 contacts. But if I do a count rows of let's say ads, let's see what that gives me. 4. Now if I preview that, I didn't like that. Oh, is it not saving properly? I'm just going to refresh here. Maybe that was my issue before. Yeah, it didn't like that, eh? That's why my other stuff wasn't working. So count rows, let's just say ads. Save. And then that says it's saved. Yeah, so you can see here that we don't have access to that particular table, so it's going to give us that permission denied for the entity. Because we're attempting to look up in the back end here, they're going to give us permissions, but on our PowerFX, I don't have table permissions on the ads. But if I were to do, say, if I go back to contacts, save that, we've got 13. Now I might have, let me do a preview on that one, because I've got permissions on that, but I might have global permissions. So I've got 13 there. Let me try it on accounts. 294. So let's see if this one tells me 294. Yeah, it does. So I must, if I look at my security table permissions, yeah, I have global. So if I were to do this, and if I were to say it's only contact access based on my parent account, save that. And preview that. Let's see how many I got. Oh, it's still giving me. I might have another table permission. Honestly, in these fun sites, you can end up with lots of extra table permissions that you may not intend to get. But anyways, the idea here is that when you access those tables, you are going to be restricted by your table permissions. So just as we see with Liquid, just as we see with Web API, just be aware that you do need to be accounting for that. I'll show you kind of what it looks like if you're, say, adding an image. So if you're adding an image here, what's going to happen is you can see, oh, let me just do that again because there was a little pop-up that disappeared. If we go to an image, you'll see there's, oh, this component supports PowerFX, try it. So then you click that, and then you can use PowerFX to define the URL of your image. You can see you can also use it to define your alt text. So if I say I want to define my alt text, I can say this is user.email, for example. If I click save, if I then also pick that, if I preview this, and inspect that, you can see my alt text is set to my PowerFX expression. Just delete that. Similar for buttons. You add a button, say, hey, you want to try PowerFX with this thing. You got the button URL, you got the button text that you can flip between to set that. And then the other one is our iframe. And again, here, hey, do you want to use PowerFX? You got that option here. So straightforward, especially if you know PowerFX, which I clearly don't. But that's kind of where you can use it for now. I think a lot of people are going to be using it in those text areas to do that. One thing I did want to, let me get rid of this. I've got a slide, but I can just show you the old-fashioned way. Let me get rid of this. If that's saved, if I go to edit the code and see what this actually looks like in terms of the markup that's saved, you'll see that it's kind of looks almost, oh, am I going to have to multi-factor? No. Edit the site. If I look at what we actually end up seeing in here, you'll see that it's this curly brace and then fx colon, oop, don't want to edit that. Dumb interface. Okay, curly brace fx colon, and then that is what your command is. Now, I did try, like, can I just take this and use that syntax in other places? No. Um, I found that like it's pretty restrictive as to where it can be used. So if you're trying to get fancy by using that same syntax like you could in other places where maybe Liquid is supported, I haven't had much success with that. So if I just kind of moved it outside and kind of moved it to the bottom, it doesn't look like it's picking up on that. But that's what you're going to see. So now you can obviously edit it in here, and it's going to work here. So I could just change this if I wanted to user dot full name. Now, of course, there's no IntelliSense in here, so I better get it right. If I go back here and sync, see if I typed it correctly. Yes. So you can edit that way, but it's not quite like Liquid where you can kind of just use those tags kind of almost wherever you want. With PowerFX, if you can't put it in there using the designer, there's a good chance that it's just not going to work. So as an example, if I go here and I just take this and I put it here at the bottom, which if it was Liquid, this would work no problem. If I go here and click sync, I think I'm just going to see the raw. See if that will show up here. Yeah, so I don't see the name. Oh, did that? Oh, failed. So that didn't save. That's why. Because I should just see that like as literal raw text there. So let me see if I can get that to pull in here. Yeah, so you can see it's literally just outputting it there. I don't know what the exact logic is for how it knows when to evaluate that PowerFX command, but you'll see if you put it in kind of the wrong place, it doesn't recognize it. So maybe you have to wrap it in a p tag, but just have to be careful. You can't just throw it in, any web template you want, like you could with Liquid. All right. So yeah, here was just my example of showing you kind of what the syntax is in the code. Um, so this is kind of the big question. This is what most people are interested in kind of finding about when they hear about PowerFX is, well, does this mean the end of Liquid? Um, and I mean, certainly right now, Liquid is a more powerful language. Liquid has templating capabilities that just don't exist with PowerFX, and I don't know if it ever will exist with PowerFX. So like with Liquid, we can do loops, we can execute fetch XML. There's lots of things we can do in Liquid. But in terms of the actual kind of authoring experience, there's Liquid is kind of more. Microsoft kind of targets Liquid at the pro code side and PowerFX at the low code, no code side. So if you're writing a bunch of Liquid, you're probably doing that in Visual Studio Code, or you're doing it in, like the desktop version of VS Code, the online version, XRM Toolbox, that sort of thing. There's not really great Liquid support in the Design Studio itself. That's obviously the opposite for PowerFX. Like PowerFX is kind of meant to be put into that Design Studio. So it's my my feeling that Liquid is certainly more targeted at the pro code side of things versus the low code side of things. But there's also like different sets of functions available. So for example, in Liquid, there's no random number generator, but that happens to be one of the formulas available for PowerFX. So if you happen to have the need for some function, whether it's kind of a math function or a string manipulation function, and if you're kind of like me and you're used to Liquid and you're kind of stuck and Liquid doesn't give you exactly what you need, check out PowerFX because it may give you that little bit of whatever additional functions or whatever different functions it has. You might get some of those different formulas that are available in PowerFX that just aren't out of the box with the liquid language. Um, to me, the primary benefits of PowerFX right now, it is accessible in the design studio. So if that's something that's kind of important to you, if you want to stay away from VS Code, it is there. But I think the big thing right now, it's kind of a marketing thing. It's, hey, all you people who know PowerFX, you can now use that in Power Pages. So it may help with the learning curve for a few of those people who are moving into Power Pages from other parts of the Power Platform. Um, I don't think this is going to revolutionize anyone's websites anytime soon, because again, pretty much anything you could do with PowerFX now is definitely possible with Liquid, and I don't think it's that big of a barrier. But I do think it's nice that we're kind of incorporating some of these other technologies from other parts of the Power Platform within Power Pages, and I expect that to continue to grow. So not something I'm using a whole lot in my day-to-day life right now, but I think if I was probably more comfortable with PowerFX than Liquid, that it might be my go-to for some of these kind of more simple Liquid statements, and not having to kind of jump over to VS Code and be able to do it right in the designer is nice if that's the interface that you're primarily working in. So for those low code, no code people, it's a nice benefit. But I don't think Liquid's going anywhere. The investment, like there's just too much Liquid baked into the product for me to think that Liquid's going anywhere anytime soon. I don't see this as a replacement for PowerFX as a replacement for Liquid. It is just another option, another tool for people who might be using it elsewhere, and that sort of thing. So I am not. I'm not. I don't think Liquid's going anywhere. So don't be worried about that. All right. I mean, as you can see, the capabilities within PowerFX and Power Pages are relatively limited right now. We've got those. It goes in text, it goes in images and iframes and buttons. Again, we've got the list of formulas, so you can see there's quite a bit in here. There's, if you want to start doing some trigonometry with cosines and sines, you can do that. Um, there's some kind of date and time manipulation you can do, like lots of stuff in here, lots of formulas that you can play around with. So I think that is, for those of us who kind of have been using Liquid for a long time, I think that's um, the most likely place where we're going to start to embrace PowerFX is when there's something, whether it's something with date manipulation or string manipulation that is just ends up being either easier or just not possible with Liquid. Um, I think that's where you're going to see, like, standard deviation. I don't know if we have those. I don't know Liquid off the top of my head, but um, there's certain functions that are just not available in Power or in Liquid that are available with PowerFX. So you'll just start seeing some of those kind of use cases pop up where, hey, I'm struggling to do this in Liquid. Let's check PowerFX to see if it maybe just has the right things that I need to get what I need to do. Okay, so that's kind of what I want to cover this week in terms of PowerFX. Our next call is scheduled for November 21st. That will be our last call of the year, because we traditionally take a break in December because no one wants to come to one of these at Christmas time or New Year's time. So yeah, our next call will be November 21st. So that's before the Thanksgiving holidays in the United States. Um, Currently, we don't have a topic picked out, so if you do have any suggestions for a topic, let me go to the question. Is blank. Okay. Oh, I can see people were helping me as I struggled along. So Jim says, does it work to put PowerFX into element attribute values like class and style? That's a good question. Let's give that a try. So if we were to go into here, could we, let's try if we were to say class equals this. Saving my file, preview. Let's see if that works. That did work. So honestly, I think at this point, I haven't seen any documentation as to like where it does or where it doesn't work. So it looks like it's going to be some trial and error because I don't know why it wouldn't have worked, down here. Maybe maybe it's within p tags, or maybe it's got to be within a div. Didn't see if there's anything on this div that kind of would clue it in to say, hey, yeah, I don't see anything, no immediate clues in the div that say, hey, within this div, there's some power effects. Like I'm not sure if I were to put it outside the paragraph tag. I don't know. I think maybe this will work, but it seems like it's a bit trial and error to figure out where that's going to work. So that did work. That's interesting. I wonder how that looks in the design studio. Because it's kind of not in that text component anymore. So that's why I'm kind of interested to see how it's gonna handle this. Yeah, it's interesting that it doesn't show it here, but it shows it here. So yeah, it's a bit trial and error. So it looks like we can use it to put it in an attribute as long as it's kind of in the right place. All right. So good. So yeah, next call is November 21st. Again, thanks to Jason and MS Dynamics World for supporting these calls. And I think we've got a little bit of time here if we want to do any Q&A. I don't know if there's anyone who had any questions. I think, yeah, I see someone was helping out with the is blank or error user. And I've answered Jim's questions. So otherwise, if we don't see any other questions, we could probably wrap it up there for today.
All right, well, I'll stop the recording there. Happy to keep the line open for a moment here if anyone else is getting anything in. But thank you very much, Nick, and I look forward to seeing you and everyone else next month.